Today we are going to be factoring by grouping. So we have three problems here, and we are going to factor them thoroughly. So we have, number one, we have x cubed plus 3x squared plus x plus 3. Yep, my cat wants to learn math too, so I'm going to teach him how to do math. All right, so we can group these together to factor them. So we have x3, x to the cubed plus 3x squared. We can group that plus x plus 3. Those are going to be our groups, and we can factor certain variables out of them, certain values out of them. So let's go into the first group. The first group, we can see that they have an x2 in common because x2 goes into x3, and x2 is pretty much already in 3x2, right? So we can factor out an x squared out of them. X squared. We can factor that out. And basically when you factor out an x squared from x to the cube, you just get x, because x squared times x is x cubed. That is the distributive property. So that is basically the basic idea of the distributive property. Same thing with 3. When you take out an x squared out of 3x squared, you just get 3. Again, when we multiply x squared by 3, we get 3x squared. Again, the distributive property. Parentheses. And with this one, we can just factor out a 1. So plus 1, because 1 times x is x, and 1 times 3 is 3. The distributive property again, factor out a 1. So now we can now that we have basically we have the variable that this thing has in common, this expression has in common. They have an x3 in common, x plus 3 in common. We have an x plus 3 here and an x plus 3 there. We can factor that out because, yeah, we can factor that out, and we get, let's factor out the x plus 3. We factor x plus 3, and then we have x squared plus 1, because we factor out the x plus 3 from both of these groups because they have that in common. So we have x plus 3 times x squared plus 1. So that is how we factor this one. So that is going to be our answer. That means, basically what this means is that if we multiply these two together, it's going to give us this. We can check it by multiplying these two together, and it will give us that. But I'm not going to do that here because that's going to take a little bit too long. It's just the basic idea is just this, x plus 3, x to the square, x squared plus 1. Basically, you just do this. This is x3. This is going to be 3x squared. This is going to be x. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I don't really care. There's going to be 3. So we get x3, x to the third, plus 3x squared plus x plus 3. Basically, we multiply these two together, we get that, and we get that. So that is how we factor this one. Let's go on and move on to number 2. 6x cubed plus x squared plus 12x plus 2. So how do we do number 2? Again, we can group them just like we did in number 1. Our first group is going to be 6x cubed plus x squared plus parentheses 12x plus 2. So So that is how we group them. Again, when we factor what they have in common out. So 6x cubed plus x squared, again, they have an x squared in common because you can take out an x squared from 6x3, as well as you can take out an x squared from x squared if, like, I'll show you if we use a distributive property. So we have x squared. When we take out 6x squared from, when we take out x squared from 6x cubed, we have 6x plus 1. Why? Because when we use a distributive property, we multiply x squared by 6x to get 6x cubed. We multiply x squared plus by 1 to get x squared. So that is what we do. Now we can factor out basically what these two have in common. What can we take out of 12 and 2 that they have in common? A 2, right? So we can take out a 2. Plus 2. When we take out a 2 from 12x, we get 6x. Again, with the distributive property, 2 times 6x gives us 12x. And when we take out a 2 from 2, we just get a 1 here, because 2 times 1 is 1. So this is how we factor it. Now we see between these two groups, what do they have in common? I see that they have a 6x plus 1 in common, so we factor the 6x plus 1 out of these two groups. So we have 6x plus 1, and then we have x squared plus 2. So we factor this one out, and then we just add x squared and 2 together to get that. So 6x plus 1 times x squared plus 2. That is how we completely factor this one by grouping. And if we multiply these two together, we are going to get this. Now, number 3, the last one. 6x cubed, take away 2x squared plus 6x minus 2. Right off the bat, what can we get rid of? What can we factor out of this? We can factor out a 2, right? 2. Let's do it down here. 2. Let's factor out a 2. When we factor out a 2 from 6x cubed, we get a 3x cubed. Because again, the distributive property 2 times 3x cubed is going to give us 6x cubed, right? And now, when we take out a 2 from minus 2x cubed, we're just going to get an x squared. Sorry about that, x squared. Sorry, my cat's distracting me here, but let's continue. And 3x minus 1. So we have this, because when we use a distributive property, we get that. That's what happens when we factor out 2 out of it. Just checking if this is correct, and so far so good. So now we can put the 2 aside and we'll come back to it. So now we're left with 3x cubed minus x squared plus 3x minus 1. Let's just put the 2 aside for a second, and we'll focus on it later. Now we'll focus on this one. Again, using the grouping method, we group 3x cubed minus x squared and plus 3x minus 1. Like that. So again, so what we do is basically, what can we pretty much factor out of this? We can factor out an x squared. We can factor out an x squared from here. So let's do it right here. X squared times 3x minus 1, right? Because this times this gives us this, and this times that gives us that. That's how we factor. And then we can just go ahead and factor out a 1 out of 3x minus 1. And we see that they have 3x minus 1. Both of these have 3x minus 1 in common. They have that in common, so we can go ahead and factor that out. So let's factor out the 3x minus 1 out of x squared plus 1. X squared plus 1. And then we can go ahead and bring down our 2 right here. So 2 times 3x minus 1 times x squared plus 1. So again, if we multiply all of this together, we are going to get this. So that is how we pretty much factor number 3 out by grouping. So that is how we do it. And that's basically it. It's quite simple. Yep. I'm just checking my work right here. Make sure to check your work, and everything seems good so far. So that is it. Box the answer. And yeah, we're done. That's how you factor by grouping.